Hello, people of the vast and wide internet. It's Beans Reads, and today we're going to be reading some more r/entitled parents from Reddit. Starting us off, entitled mom can't accept that her 3-year-old child isn't a prodigy. Heya, last week I started a job as a teacher. Perfect ground for finding entitled parents. Here's some background to start off with. I teach English to children, and while the school accepts children between 18 months and 12 years, my students are between the ages of 2 and 5. The school I work at only teaches English and has different levels based on your child's ability, where the teacher can use discretion to decide if the child can go faster or needs to slow down. Because of the coronavirus, the school also has mostly one-on-one lessons now, but because things are getting better where I am, the school also allows physical classes instead of online classes only. I have this kid, we'll call him D. He's a 3-year-old boy with a local Chinese father and a mother who's traditionally Chinese. Where I live, English is the primary language of most people, though the command of English is a little skewed, with plenty of slang. Dee's father could speak in Mandarin to his wife, our entitled mother. Entitled mother, however, could not speak any English at all and was Mandarin speaking only. This is where problem number 1 is. While I am local Chinese, I only grew up with English-speaking parents and grandparents, which means I have almost no command of Mandarin, even though I studied it as a second language for 12 years. Once I was out of school, my brain wrung out any knowledge of Mandarin like water out of a sponge. I can speak it at a barely conversational level, but can't explain anything in depth. The second lesson D came for was also my first day working there. While I was briefed on entitled mother as she had been the one to sign up D for lessons, I was informed by my coworker that D's father would be the one dropping him off and picking him up. This was good news for me, because when we let the child go at the end of the lesson, we take a few minutes to go through with the parents/guardians on what the child learned, what they did well, and what they can improve on, along with any recommendations for them like speeding up or slowing down. It's hard for me to explain any of that in Mandarin, so if Dee's father was the one coming to pick him up, then talking to him was simple. Unfortunately for me, that was not the case. On Dee's first day with me, entitled mother was the one to drop him off. He's only 3 years old, so we were doing a foundation class with him, and we were basically teaching him one letter per hour-long class. How to say and write it, what sound a letter makes, and some simple words that start with the said letter. Given that this was his first time seeing me, he was almost entirely unresponsive to anything I said. He kept trying to go out and find entitled mother, would want me to open the door, and when I wouldn't, because he could just be running off, he'd try to shove his fingers in the gaps of the door. He would not repeat after me or mimic my actions, and overall did not manage to learn much. I did manage to get him to say the 4 words that start with the letter B, but that was about all we managed to do in that hour. For all my Southeast Asian people out there, you know how parents can be. You always know traditional Japanese parents are even worse, and entitled mother was just horrid. When I let D out to go back to entitled mother, she was at the first cordonal asking how he did in the class and what he learned. I explained to her that because this was D's first lesson with me, he wasn't as responsive, but that he did manage to say 4 B words taught to him. Now, during classes, we have 4 flashcards with the words they're supposed to learn, and we give these cards to the parents to keep in case they want to revise with the child at home. I prefer to give the cards to the kids to hold to reinforce that it's their responsibility to keep the cards safe. Plus, it helps them develop their motor skills when they have to hold stuff. When I gave D his flashcards, entitled mother snapped it out of his hand and immediately pointed to the first one, Bubbles, demanding loudly for him to say the word. Since D was no longer in an environment where it was just me and him, he clammed up and wouldn't say anything. Entitled mother saw that as my failure. Cue our first terrible conversation. You already know who entitled mother and D are, and me is, I don't need to explain that. This conversation was in Mandarin, with me speaking in broken Mandarin. As a side note, I can understand Mandarin but can't speak it. Another side note, parents aren't allowed to be in the classroom during lesson time. Entitled mother, what does this card say? D doesn't say anything. Entitled mother jabbing her fingers into the car. What does it say? When D doesn't respond, I get a death glare from entitled mother. Entitled mother, why doesn't he know how to say it? What do I pay you for? Me, Ma'am, since this was his first lesson with me, I think he was shy and didn't manage to get far in the material today. I assure you that, entitled mother, what do I pay you for? I sent him here so he could learn English. Entitled mother glares at Dee and demands that he says bubbles again. But Dee is entirely clammed up and just shakes his head. Me. Look, ma'am, you need to understand that it's his first time seeing me, and he's 3 years old. He was able to copy what I said during class time and point at the pictures associated with words. Entitled mother, then why can't he say it? Dee, tell me what this card says. Me, possibly because we're no longer in a quiet environment. When it's just him with a teacher, he should warm up to me within the next class or two and become more recipient to the lessons. I'm sorry if class today wasn't up to your standards, but please understand it is his first time with me. Entitled mother snorts at my comment, grabs Dee and stalks off. I share some words with my coworkers, mostly us complaining about entitled mother, and my mentor confirming that she's just like that because it's Dee's first lesson. That concluded my first time meeting entitled mother, but oh no, we're not quite done. Now it's time for today's lesson. She was even more horrible this time. She showed up 10 minutes late, thankfully with Dee's father, to release Dee into my care. Today, I taught him the letter C, including the words car, cat, cow, and crab. He was a lot more receptive now that I figured out he was more into physical actions and was able to say all 4 words, plus match the words to the pictures. The class itself was fun, but releasing him to his parents was not. Since Dee's dad was around, I spoke to him almost exclusively. I explained to him that Dee was doing well and became a lot more receptive to me in my lessons, but struggled with penmanship since he couldn't get a good grip on a crayon and had a very light touch, so his movements were shaky. I also explained that he struggled to say car sometimes since he mixed up how it sounded with cow, but Dee's dad was very understanding. I recommended he guide Dee in how to properly hold a pencil at home, and Dee's dad relayed all this in Mandarin to entitled mother. Entitled mother looked a little pissed at me when Dee's dad mentioned to her my comments about Dee not being able to hold a crayon properly, but said nothing. The school also gives the child the activity books to bring home, and Dee's book today had a page with a card drawing. My coworker had cut out the entire page so she could cut out the card itself with ease. Colored by Dee. Entitled mother only noticed the bit of page that was still in the book and blew her fuse. Entitled mother, where is this page? How can you give him such a terrible book, huh? Where is the page? Why did you give my son something so terribly made? Me, ma'am, that page was cut out because there's a paper car cutout we needed to use. Here, the car is right here. I flipped the book over to the front page where Dee's messily colored car cutout was tucked between the cover and the first page. Entitled mother's rage subsided a little, but she gave me the nastiest death glare. Entitled mother, oh, so he couldn't even color it properly. I wonder why I'm even paying you when you can't teach Dee how to color a picture. Let me just say, teaching children how to hold a pencil is not my job. It is the parent's duty, and if they only expect him to practice for an hour every Saturday, that's their problem. Sounds nasty, but it's true. At this point, I'm exclusively talking to Dee's dad and barely even looking at entitled mother. Entitled mother has also gone back to jabbing her finger at the flashcards, demanding that Dee say what the words are. Entitled mother is shaking the car flashcard in Dee's face. Say it! Say what this word is. Dee is visibly stressed, clutching his toy car and staring at entitled mother but saying nothing. I decide to intervene. Me, pointing at Dee's toy car in his hands. Dee, do you know what this is? Dee immediately flashes me a big grin. Dee, car! I clap for him and give him a high five, offering entitled mother a smile that only makes her scowl deeper. Pretty sure her muzzle lines and crow's feet are permanent now. I also notice that any time entitled mother talks, Dee's dad looks at her with such tiredness in his eyes, like he's regretting his marriage now. I finished explaining to Dee's dad all my recommendations for him to practice his penmanship at home. He thanks me while entitled mother grabs Dee's wrists and yanks him off, stalking off like she's some female fatal. The school admin apologizes to me for even convincing entitled mother to sign up, saying he knew she was going to be trouble during the sign-up process. I just say it's fine, pack up and leave. Now 3 hours later, I'm sitting here writing this, thinking if entitled mother keeps her trash behavior, she's going to grow up with a son that hates her. Well, that last one was just silly. Alright, let's move on to the next one. That's a lease violation. Took a couple of my children to an apartment complex pool today to play with a friend whose mom is very entitled. The pool closes at 7 p.m., no exceptions due to the coronavirus. There is also max occupancy at all 4 pools. We found a pool with no one in it, so it worked out quite nicely as it was wonderfully shaded. We sit, have pizza, swim a bit. Generally, the kiddos are having a fantastic time. At 20 till 7 p.m., the security guard comes around and reminds us that it closes at 7 p.m. sharp. Knowing this, I of course have no issues. We were just happy to get to go swimming in the first time in summer. We have been very careful about our exposure as two in the family have already been infected. Isolation sucks, quarantine sucks, and we do not want to risk repeating. Poor dude was just looking tired. The nice exhausted security guy reminds us at 5 minutes till that the pool closes at 7 p.m. Awesome. Wife and I start gearing up to leave and let the boys know we had to head home. The mom that was with us, who I hate being around too much exactly because of this, starts asking the pool guy if we can have 5 more minutes. Guy says, I have to close all of the pools, so I would prefer you leave. Thank you. Then she pushes. Please, can we have 5 more minutes? What will it hurt? My kids just want to play, and we haven't been in here that long. Then, the payoff of the day, when the nice security guard responds, not leaving is a lease violation. Shut her up so quick, it was glorious. Extra payoff was my wife, while heading home, asking, seriously, what is 5 more minutes gonna get you? What an idiot. Well, I'm sure 5 more minutes would have been nice, but at the same time, to make that big of a fuss over it was absolutely ridiculous, especially to such a kind security guard. With that being said, let's move on. Entitled mother demanding to hold my baby and doesn't care about the virus. So this has just happened to me, and I'm in utter rage mode. I was walking my 3-month-old son in his buggy. He is a heavy sleeper, thank goodness, and I enjoy the walk. This day I decide to get him some clothes since, babies grow fast. We get to a secondhand baby clothes store, and I go about my business when a wild Karen appears. She smiles and says she has grandkids his size. Oh, how time flies. Blah blah, the usual adoring stranger small talk. I thank her and look through some onesies, and I hear my baby boy whimp and make sounds, which is strange since he usually sleeps like a rock. I look over and see Karen holding my baby in her arms. Not only had she awakened my sleeping baby, but decided to hold him despite the virus. I almost lost my cool, but I thought maybe she was just a dim-witted old lady. So I reach out to take my baby back, and she steps away from me, creating this little convo. Time mother, no, you just continue shopping, I'll hold this one. Me, visibly angry, no, you will give my son back right now. Entitled mom, no, I know more about kids than you will ever know. I have 10 grandchildren. Me, so what? Now you will give me my baby now, or I'm going to hurt you badly. Baby begins to cry. Entitled mother, look what you did. He doesn't like you very much. Me, I reach out again and gets a hold of the baby, but Karen still has her claws on him. Let go. Entitled mother finally lets him go. It's not my fault. Me, there is a global pandemic happening, lady, and you decide to hold my unvaccinated child. Furthermore, taking a child that isn't yours and that you certainly had no permission to hold, what the heck? Entitled mother, you are such a terrible person. The virus is just a hoax. I hope you get your child taken. People start to turn our way, and I simply put my boy back in his stroller and walk away with her screaming like a banshee behind us. People get crazy during lockdowns. I'm terrified of going out again. That one was absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe it. If someone were to steal my kid, I would throw a tantrum. Alright, with that being said, let's move on. Last one of the day. Drunk mother tried to ruin my friendship by pretending to know something I didn't. This happened in my early 20s. My mother, during that period, was especially hard to deal with for a variety of reasons. One of her problems was an antisocial resentment towards certain people that I could not understand. And back then, she was not very fond of a close friend of mine. Let's call him Ron. Now, Ron and I have been good friends since middle school. However, my mom thought of him as too hyper and annoying. So much so, she often referred to him as Crazy Ron. After high school ended for us in 2004, Ron moved away with his folks to another state, and I lost contact with him for 5 years. Then, in 2009, he moved back on his own and we reconnected. Over the next few years, we hung out more and more. Then one night, while my mom was drinking, the subject of Ron came up. Suddenly, my mom got one of those scrunchy, small-mouthed, crap-eating grins. Like the kind a little girl would do when they are about to say, "I know something you don't know." My mom started to say that she knew something about Ron, and that if I knew it, I might not like him anymore. Now this is where she screwed up. Ron and I have been pretty much open with each other about all our secrets since high school. Nothing new he's ever told me about himself surprised me or affected our relationship. Not even when he told me he's bisexual, or how attracted to my older sister he was. I asked my mom what this so-called secret was. She just kept smiling and acting like if she told me it'd end very badly. So I dropped the hammer on her, and said that I doubt whatever it is she knows about him, I probably already know it. And if it was I somehow didn't, finding it out probably wouldn't change a thing in our friendship. My mom's bratty grin suddenly turned into a deep frown, and she cowered a bit as I pressured her to tell me what this so-called secret was. She then changed the subject and acted mad at me before walking off to mope. I confronted her several more times, and to this day she never could tell me what this so-called secret was. I never said it to her face, but she and I both know she never had a secret. She was just looking for an excuse to gaslight, and it failed badly. Since then, she's never tried that again. Ron is still my best friend, and is also my roommate now. I took him in when he could no longer afford to live on his own, and my family has really warmed up to him a lot better since then. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next video. Please like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful day. Love you all. Goodbye.